So you were just saying there that your wife and you have a triathlon business already. Or
Yeah,
she started
yeah,
one.
she started 2012, I guess. But she's been coaching before that.
Yeah.
And started her own company, and yeah, and I sort of dabbled in it with her for the first few years, I
Yeah.
guess, and then when I retired, we moved out here shortly thereafter.
Right.
But
So you're not from Canmore originally?
no,
Okay.
she's a Calgarian. I'm from the eastern end of
Okay.
Canada, and been out here since '79.
Right. Oh wow.
And
Sorry.
came out to what?
No, you said 79 and I reacted as if that was a long time, bro.
It was a long
Yeah,
time
no,
ago.
I
Yeah,
just didn't mean to
yeah,
offend you there.
yeah. We will have been married 40 years
Oh, that's
this
nice.
year. So
Yeah. Nice.
so yeah, I've been out here for a long time.
Exactly, yeah.
But
And imagine you were just saying as well, like this place has completely changed in that time.
oh yeah, amazing. So my wife's mom and dad had a recreational place here.
Yeah.
Since the early '80s,
Yeah.
and so we've spent a lot of time here.
Yeah.
And it's just been, the changes are huge.
Is it like, because I'm 31 now, I've only been here 4 years, which is nothing, but like I've got a few friends who are born and raised in Banff who are my age. You know, and I talk to them about, like, one of them now just wants to buy a house, but he's like how? Like, you know, because Cochrane, obviously, which isn't that far away, like, the cost, or the same thing that he could buy in Canmore, in Banff for the same price in Cochrane is, like, so different. You know, in Banff, it's like a 1-bed apartment. In Cochrane, it's like a 2-garage house, you know, 4 beds, blah, blah, blah. But he's from Banff, you know, he's born and raised, like.
Yeah, and we've had some friends here who have tried to make a goal of, you know, having a job here and raising their family, and then they've ended up not being able to buy a house or whatever, and just have chosen to go back to, you know, they're both Albertans, so they've kind of gone back home. But
and do you feel like Canmore's kind of going that Canmore's, I don't want to say just as bad as if it's negative, but Canmore's kind of, because they used to say like Banff was the expensive one, move out to Canmore, and now it just seems to be.
I think it's interesting because it's not in the park. So Banff's got some restrictions because it's in the park, right? Yeah. So, but here it's, you know, where we're sitting, right?
I know.
This has been a huge change in the last, say, 10, 15 years, right? Yeah. So, but it's...
does it give you any, like, with regards to the stuff in Jasper, just now, does that give you, like, any fear?
Oh, yeah.
Because my boss, he's been here for, I think his whole life, effectively, and he's just like, it's going to burn one day.
Yeah.
Which obviously is like, for people who actually, you know, yourself who live here, you have homes here, you have like a family.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Well, we have a good friend of my brother's lost his house in Jasper.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then other friends, not actually, they're only a block and a half away, and their house was fine.
That's crazy.
So it's that's just devastating. But that came up, and it's you know, when the Three Sisters ASPs were had their public forum, there was a lot of talk about fire concerns, and with that many more people, and it just, I think it just translates to whatever's here now too, is there's no place to go.
No, I know.
You look at Jasper, right? They had 3 routes out and only one was
that's crazy.
only one to go. So here we go that way or we go that way, and that's it.
I know.
And there's so many people on, you know, this side of the river that, you know, have to go one way, and then people are on the other side of the river, and that's where that big development's going to be. That's, you know, they can get out that way, but if you had to come out through town.
I know. But as I say, like, in the short period of time I've been here, I've never really, obviously I've seen, like, there's been fires every summer. Yeah. But I've never really actually been that worried about it. Maybe a little bit, like, naively, because from the UK, you know, you don't really have any natural disasters at all. Yeah. Whereas the one with the Jasper, like, as I say, you know, I was a friend who, I think he had lived up there, so he's like a lot more, I think he was just a lot more invested in it, obviously, so got friends and stuff up there, so he was kind of like, and I seen him quite a lot, and he was constantly talking to me about it. Yeah. And then, so I was, you know, like, I probably don't watch the news enough, like, just, you know, sometimes it can be quite negative, so anyway, he was kind of constantly updating me, and it was the first time that I was like, well, like, what would I do in Banff? Like, because obviously, like, you know, I've got all my stuff here, you know, granted I don't have I just rent a property, so I don't like have any furniture or like excessive stuff. I really have my personal belongings.
Yeah.
But even that, like living in Banff, it's like a bike, snowboards, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
blah.
All your gear, right?
Yeah.
Those are all that's your stuff, right?
That's my stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we would like, and I was like, what would that actually do? Because it was exactly what you said. I was like, yeah, I can pack my car.
Mm-hmm.
I could probably fit it all in the car. That's amazing. But I'm like, but then I'm going to be stuck on the road with, and I didn't actually think about it until I'm talking to you now. Because at that point, I was like, oh, I'm stuck on the road with everyone in Banff, totally forgetting that Canmore's just down the road.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, but yeah. But I guess you can't just live in fear of.
No, and I think that's you see that in some of the people who have been, like on the news or whatever, the way different people react very differently to that sort of stressor, right?
Yeah.
And I remember seeing one I guess it was just yesterday, and this lady's very upset. Like, she's a Jasper resident, been displaced, but not able to see the people she normally sees, and that's very upsetting to her. And and just it's disruption in your kind of your normal day-to-day life, and so she was very upset about that. And then other people that have been interviewed are, everybody is safe. 25,000 people got evacuated basically overnight, and nobody was injured.
Yeah.
And so they're seeing that as very positive, and they're just, they're looking forward to getting back into town, but they're not seemingly overly stressed about it. They just, it is what it is, and we'll make it through. So it's interesting to see the spectrum of the way people react to stuff like that. So.
I also think, and this is nothing revolutionary, but like, it's crazy how quickly the news changes.
Yeah.
In the this is maybe like a week ago, and like the last week, it's like, it's just moved on. Because I said to, like, so my work, so we do, as I was saying, we do like outdoor adventure stuff, and some of that stuff is like we do Mount Athabasca, like a weekend summit. So that's like a skills day on a Saturday, summit on a Sunday. We run some other stuff. We were doing a hiking week in Jasper, not in Jasper, but one of the days was going up to Jasper. Obviously all these things had to get changed. But I was just like, sorry, I forgot what I was going with that, but yeah, I think it's just the reality of just like, it's not kind of as simple, like for people like us that make these small changes, right, cool, that's not a big deal. But as for people like obviously the family member, the friend you were referring to, who's like their house is burned down, like
all their stuff gone.
We just change our program. We just don't go to Jasper, we go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But that's like, what's like, even if you have home insurance, it's like, right, cool, but the insurance isn't going to pay you out like that. They're gonna want to know everything you had, down to the detail. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you look at Lillooet out in BC that was burnt 2 summers ago now. They're still trying to get things rebuilt and stuff, right? So it's a long haul thing, to say nothing of the impact, like the short-term immediate impact, but then you have to rebuild your house, you have to get all your gear back and kind of connect with your neighbors who are having to do the same thing, right? So it's pretty impactful, and I have no idea how I would react.
I know, and you don't really know until I guess you can't really tell until that happens. But have you ever done the cycle from Jasper to here?
Oh yeah.
Have you?
Yeah, a few times.
How long have you done it in, if that makes sense? Like, have you done it just a day, or have you done it?
The last time we did it with friends that we camped.
Yeah.
So we rode probably 80K the first day, and then by the middle of the third day we were down and down. So, and we just kind of took it easy. We didn't want to ride too hard or whatever. But I know people who, they've ridden up to Jasper from here one day, and then they turn around and come back the next.
That's crazy.
So but they're long distance triathletes, and that's kind of what they do, right? So
so like a few years ago when I was training for the 100 mile, my friends doing no cycling, obviously running all the time. My friend, he's a really keen cyclist. Him and I we came here at the same time, and every summer we're like, dude, let's do the cycle. But it was just the time we were struggling, because we want to do it in like 3 days minimum, 5 days if we were like making a total trip of it. And eventually we got to the point where we were like, and obviously we're both now here long term, but at that point we were on our first visa. We didn't know if we were coming or going.
Yeah.
So effectively we were just like, we need to do this. Like, if we want to do it, so we did it in a couple of days. So his girlfriend drove us up. So she drove us up in the morning, dropped us off, and then on her way back, she set up our campsite at, I think it was Mosquito Creek or like Wilcox or something.
Yeah.
Oh no, Waterfall.
Yeah.
That area.
Yeah.
She set up our campsite there, so we cycled from Jasper to there. And then, I mean, if she hadn't helped us, we would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, couldn't have done it. Got set up, and then, yeah, I mean, obviously I'd done an Ironman before that, but like I hadn't cycled effectively since then, which was maybe 2 years before that. Yes, I was fit from the running, but like, see the next morning, like sitting on that bike, it was like, especially because there's the slightest of inclines out of that campsite, I was just like, agony. And it was amazing though, like it's funny how, and this is something I got, so my like background when I was a kid, like I ran, like I did like track, didn't really get into triathlons until I was like early, like mid-20s really. So I never really cycled in the roads, and until I started doing like triathlons, you don't appreciate good tarmac, especially in the UK, because the roads, you know, it's obviously a lot wetter typically. Yeah. So the roads can be pretty treacherous with like potholes and just generally being quite shit. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, it was once I started doing triathlons, I was like I'd be driving on and again, like when you're driving as well, you don't actually appreciate like the slightest incline on a car, like on a bike, you know, because it might just keep going for like a mile or a kilometer or whatever, and you're like, wow. It kind of is funny how it changes your perspective.
Yeah. Under your own power, gravity can be your friend or your enemy, right?
So have you been into triathlons like your life or?
Probably in my mid to late 30s, so in the the late mid 90s.
And was that when you met your wife, or did you?
Yeah, I had met her before that. We worked for the same company, so, and I started first, and then just a couple of years later, she got into it too. Yeah. And our girls were quite kind of young, so it was more of a balancing act. Yeah. But once they got a little bit older and able to kind of be on their own, we'd be able to do our longer training rides and stuff before they figured that they should get out of bed in the morning. So that worked out. But
I think that's one thing I appreciated is like, particularly with the Ironman, is how time consuming it is. Like, you know, so at this point in time when I did Ironman, I was like maybe like 26, 27 or something like that. And but I shouldn't say this, but I was kind of fortunate because what happened was for the first like couple of 3 months of the training, the true training for it, I was working full time, you know, as normal people do, so 9 to 5. But like, you know what that's like. So I was like coming home at 5, like effectively like getting straight on a turbo trainer, like the bike in the house. Just to save a little bit of time. Having like my dinner would be like a smoothie, like getting off of that, like going out, like, you know, a run, coming home, shower, going to bed, and it was like, you know, then going to work the next day and doing it over and over and over again. So I was saying I was fortunate, and you know, obviously I say that tongue in cheek because COVID happened. So then what happened was I got, in the UK we call it furloughed, but effectively I was just getting paid to stay at home by the government, and I just had like infinite time to train. You know, for that long, like I did it for maybe like, I think I was not working for like maybe 2 or 3 months, but it just gave me like enough like kind of momentum in the beginning to get into it. But yeah, like obviously I went back to work. You know, being like a youngish guy in your kind of late 20s, like it's still obviously like very social. Everyone's talking about blah blah blah. And it was just like I was like, nah. It was such really bad. I was like, I honestly can't. Like, you know, my friends because none of my friends have really done that, so they were just like, oh yeah, but like just have a few pints and do a 7 hours cycle tomorrow, whatever it may be, maybe even shorter. And you're just like, nah, it's like it's not worth it. But
that was an interesting time, COVID, for a lot of, like, in the triathlon realm, if you will.
Did it affect you guys?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it affected everyone.
Yeah, for sure. And it changed the way we run our business. Because it immediately had to go from being in the same room with people to doing offline or online stuff. So. And
have you kept some of that? Like, is there anything that you're like, you know?
Yeah, we don't do in person bike training sessions anymore. That's all online.
And is that just because it's like more cost effective? Or it's like
and we right at that point we were still living in are still running programs in Calgary. So we'd go in on a Tuesday and we'd run, like a Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night in the evening, and then Thursday after that we'd drive back out.
Yeah.
And we, hauling all of our gear and bikes and trainers and a sound system and fans and all that sort of stuff. And then.
So you did that? It was like indoor bike training, like on spin bikes or something like that.
Yeah. And then we had. We rented a room that was attached to a bike store. And we've had a few iterations of that, where we'd be in a community hall or whatever. So just wherever we could find space at different times. We ran, evening sessions. We ran like a Sunday morning longer session too. So a lot of different things. It kind of evolved, I guess. But when COVID was kind of in March here anyways.
Yeah.
They just, 1 week we were in there, and the next week we had to do something different. So we basically got ourselves hooked up with Zoom and did that.
Yeah.
So
it's funny, before that, like before COVID, so I was working back in the UK, like a project management type position for a construction company, and they would fly us to Poland because that's where the factory was, fly us down to London, and then COVID happened, and like they would fly us for like meetings that were like. What it's like minutes long at times, or like the meeting might be longer, but there was not a real need for your physical presence.
Yeah.
Because then COVID happened, and then it was like Zoom, and it was like Microsoft Teams, and it was kind of you were effectively like it was probably so much more cost efficient.
Yeah.
For the company, and then when I actually came to Canada during COVID, and when I got my job, like the outdoor adventure job here, so they had just gone from the AST programs, which is probably similar to your kind of in-person bike training, where everyone would come from wherever. We'd have to they rented a room. We actually had a back room, and everyone would have to come there. Like the logistics of trying to get everyone there at the same time. Sometimes people were like, "Oh, I can't really make it on Saturday. Can I just log in or whatever?" So we went to Zoom for the classroom portions of which is effectively the entire first day.
Yeah.
And obviously it's just so much logistically it's so much easier, but I would say it's interesting how, and you imagine you still get this as well, it's interesting how there's some people who are still I would rather do it in person. With the bike training I would certainly see that. I was actually kind of surprised with the ASD stuff because it's you are just a classroom, it's not bike training, I guess it's the kind of camaraderie with the fact that you're actually there pushing it with people, whereas this is a classroom setting, so I guess everyone's different. Some people people learn in different ways, people have different preferences, but
and there's certainly a big effect now on the workplace too, right? So people that I know ended up working from home 5 days a week, and so now they're kind of exploring different possibilities. On the individual side, but also the company sides. Had to react when COVID started, and then now it's how do we make it work again? When you're allowed, you've kind of shifted. You've already made that mental shift, and people have realized, it worked out pretty well for me and stuff like that. So, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's also funny as well, how prior to COVID, if you were sick, say you were deadly sick, but you went into your work, it's almost like a badge of honor. Yeah, I came here and I'm dying, and everyone's like, look at Chris, he's come in and he's. But as now. I work in a small. There's a couple of us in the office. So it's not a big, but if someone comes in, if Dom comes in and he's sick, what are you doing here? Now I'm more I'm not I'm not too necessarily worried about my health, but now I'm they're just gonna make us sick. You might as well just stay home. But
well, especially when the alternative is there too, right?
Yeah.
I could talk to one guy actually lives here and works in Calgary, and drive in, and his habit was to go in every day, and that's what was happening, and kind of the norm for him, as do there's quite a few people that live here and still go into Calgary. But he said, so I drive all the way into Calgary, then I do Microsoft Teams or Zoom for all of my meetings all day, and then drive all the way home. And it was just the company culture was, we want you in the office, and everybody's spaced out and stuff, and all whatever the rules were. So now I just blew 2 hours of drive time, it really depends. There was, I guess, in some cases, clashes between the company culture and what had to be done, and so it's. I think in a lot of cases, sort of settled out a little bit
Yeah.
now. But, so. But
So see, out of the 3 triathlon disciplines, do you have a preference? Or
the
you
swim,
oh, are you?
yes,
Right, 'cause
it's
that
kind
kinda
of
makes
my
sense.
strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that I was never a competitive swimmer, but it just my swim's better than my bike and my
Yeah.
run. So,
Yeah.
but I've worked hard at kind of evening them out. So
Yeah.
it's come along. But yeah, it's just I can in my age group I do pretty well in the
Nice.
water, and then there's some much better bikers,
Yeah.
and then the run I can kind of hold my own. But so
But-
it really depends.
Yeah.
So, but
I remember when I did the first sprint triathlon, I would be like 25 or whatever, egotistically, like, I honestly, ashamed to say it now, but honestly, I remember being like, I must be like one of the fittest people in this race. It's kind of small. In Scotland, obviously, it's a really small, it's a sprint triathlon, so it's obviously really small distances as well. And swim, terrible. Because this is at a point in time where I was like making poor choices, and I was drinking too much, I was doing other stuff. So like I was actually like having like panic attacks quite regularly at this point in time anyway. So get in the water, had never swam in a wetsuit, never swam open water, never swam in a group of people. You know, and granted it was a short distance, but you know, like all those 3 things combined. So like I'm wearing this like very cheap and therefore badly fit wetsuit that's just like funneling water in. I'm in a lake in Scotland. You know, so that actually wasn't. To be fair, like I could literally have stood up like in the water, like it wasn't even that deep. Like we just went along the shoreline and back. You know, but then the kind of more the jarring thing was the people. You know, like, obviously everyone's kind of like clambering over you. So I ended up having a panic attack during the swim. Still finished it. Don't know how, but still finished it. Then got on the bike, and this one because it was in the Highlands, which is kind of like here, to be honest. It was more of like a mountain bike trail than a road.
okay.
But I was like, I remember vividly this old, and I you know, don't like to age people, but this old lady, and when I say old, I'm talking like easily must have been a grand, like you know, I'm talking like late 70s. Smoked me on the bike, truly, and I'm not just saying that. It was like as if I was standing still and she flew past me, and then the run was fine because I grew up running. So then I was like, everything's kind of had like worked itself out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very like humbling and that was like an incredibly humbling experience, you know. And I probably needed, evidently I needed it, you know, at that point in time. But yeah, like I've always, because I've ran for so long, I just like it's very comfortable. I actually, the next one for me would be the swim. I actually really enjoy swimming, but I always found the bike, I just could never, maybe because I've never really done it. Like I did did the kind of training up into the, you know, probably like a year and a half from like the sprint to the Ironman. Obviously I was on a bike all the time, and after that that's the one thing that's dropped off.
Yeah.
Just because I've always found it so uncomfortable. You know, whereas like swimming and running, it's like, running I'm just used to, and swimming's like so easy in the body. You know, if you're not, well, yeah, I guess compared to cycling, it can be torturous. But that kind of makes sense. So you obviously, so you've done the English Channel swim.
Yep.
And you did it as part of a relay.
On a team, yeah, there were 6 of us.
Right, cool. So how's the
swim an hour at a time?
Right, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're like, so is there the potential that someone might swim more just because of the way the hours would lie?
Yeah.
So
So when we did it, everybody swam twice, and 2 people swam a third time. The very last guy didn't do a full hour.
Yeah.
Because he was, we hit France. And I think it was maybe 40 minutes or something in. So.
And have you done it so that you're like the stronger? Was it just everyone was just in a line, or was you like, were people like, hey, I'm happy to go again?
Yeah, there's a sequence. There's rules coming out the Yin Yang.
Yeah.
The Channel Swimming Association has specific rules, and there's an observer on the boat with you.
Yeah.
And they do the timing and confirm that. Yeah, you have to be, depending, because the rules are a little bit different. Like the same gang, essentially the same gang did the Catalina Island off of LA. So we swam in from Catalina like a few years after we did the English Channel. And in the English Channel, you just have to swim by the person that's in the water, and in Catalina, you actually have to tag.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so there's very, there are minor differences, but there's some specific. You can't touch the person, you can't touch the boat.
Yeah.
English Channel, you have to swim by the person, like within touching distance almost, but you can't touch them.
You can't touch them.
No.
Oh, because I guess they might see that as like
Yeah,
you're
that's
helping them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're a solo swimmer, you do all your feeds and stuff
Yeah.
from like a pole sort of deal. And we were only swimming an hour at a time, so it wasn't
So you can just
you do your own, when you're out. It
Yeah,
was,
that's
and that was probably, in my case anyway, that was the hard part because I got because you get a little seasick too, because we had some it got choppy enough conditions that they were thinking that they were going to have to call it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Damn.
So, but we ended up okay, and I think they were because most of us were over 60 on the team. And so they were a little bit leery, and we weren't ocean swimmers; we were lake swimmers, right? So,
yeah, I mean, I'm probably the same. Like, I've not. I mean, the triathlon I did, the full one was Barcelona.
Oh yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, it'd be like 200 meters that way, and then you kind of go effectively the line to the beach too, and then
then
so you weren't swimming through. I could see the bottom the whole way.
Oh, okay.
It was that. I mean, it was deep, but I could see the bottom. It was like I was like actually crossing channels. But yeah, that's something I was actually going to ask you about the like how you fueled. But I guess as you're saying in the relay, it's kind of easier because you can't eat.
Yeah.
So obviously I need to think about that. I'm like, so I've signed up for it. So I've got my paid my deposit for the boat crew.
Yeah. Whose boat do you have?
I think it's a guy called Andy King.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a couple that I tried. I didn't really have any. I think you know what I'm saying. It's kind of personal preference. There's a couple I tried before. Not for any other reason. Not that I didn't think the guy that I'm now with was like not suitable. Like just like someone had like helped someone else do like a specific thing, and I was like, oh cool, that's like that's quite cool. But I didn't realize when I signed up again because I had no real experience of it, like how strict it is, like what you're saying. I was like, oh, I guess I just like get a boat and then, like swim across it. And then obviously when I was looking at the Channel Swim Association website, I was noticing that every single guy was wearing, I would call them budgie smugglers, but like speedos, I guess. Like,
That's all you're allowed to
no,
wear.
I know, but I didn't know.
Oh, there's restrictions on how far above the knee or stuff like that.
So I was looking at all the pictures and I was like, wow, I honestly, I didn't. It was only after I learned that you couldn't have a wetsuit that the pictures made sense. I was like, oh yeah, like every single picture, I was like a guy a guy in these shorts.
And it's amusing now because like swimmers, well, the Olympics are on now, right? So swimmers in the pool, they have big suits and stuff like that on, and I don't know if that. If the Channel Association is thinking of changing that, but it's like, you have like a real skimpy little speedo on.
I'm not it's weird. I mean, I've got like just like shorts in the pool.
Oh yeah, that's what I wear too.
Can you wear them, or did you have to go?
No, we had like we had to go and buy a special suit sort of deal, right? But it was so that was kind of an interesting aspect of it. But the women wear like a full body suit, so they don't. Not like they have to wear a bikini, like a two-piece or whatever like that. So I think it's a little bit less stringent for the women.
And how did you like? Were you like all oiled up in goose fat, or what did you?
We didn't have to do that. We were like body glide and stuff, just so you didn't shave because salt water is just a little bit more abrasive, if you will. But again, we were only swimming an hour at a time, so that made a difference, right? And then, but you're allowed, there's a certain, I think they had restrictions about what sort of, was lanolin or whatever, that you were allowed to put on. So that was something that you should, find out, but also experiment with too, and to see which one works better for you. But it was interesting.
How did you find the experience as a whole? I know it's quite
It was a lot of fun. it was certainly challenging.
Yeah.
And like we arrived, because you with your boat you book a week, right? So
exactly.
they've got, and then within that week, so there's, when we were there was I think 4 or 5 different boats that had people that were, I think there was a couple other teams and then some singles too. So and you can book first, second, third, or fourth wave. So you kind of have there's a priority in there.
Yeah.
Amongst the boats, and we had first wave, which was really,
That's who you want.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that way, as soon as that weather window opens, then they can just choose a time. So we arrived, I think it was like a Monday afternoon. We got a hold of the boat and had a meeting, and he said the weather's looking good, so I'll give you a call.
Yeah.
And it was Tuesday at 3:00 in the morning, and off we went. So
he literally called. But was there like a prior warning, like as in the night before? Is he like, hey, like get good sleep?
Yeah, it's looking good.
Right, okay, cool. So it's not like
so
like 3 a.m. out of the blue.
Yeah, no. So he, within, we knew we were going to go at 3 p.m. kind of the day before
Right, okay,
that.
cool.
So
Right, sweet.
and we had just gotten there, and the weather window was there, and we talked to guys that they'd been there for 10 days and just had not been able to get in because of they didn't have first, second, third, or fourth wave. They were maybe fifth or sixth wave, and so the guys who were ahead of them kind of took those weather windows, is the way I remember it, and then
That's interesting.
then the weather closes, and then you can't go. So nobody can go.
Yeah.
And then it kind of recalibrates when the next weather window goes. So,
Cool.
but it was interesting because there were people that, and one guy had been there for a couple of weeks, I think, and was just not able to go because weather stuff and timing and when his boat was ready and all that sort of jazz. So which was really unfortunate for him.
Yeah.
And then I think we had the kind of the ideal situation where we arrived, the weather was good, the boat was ready, and boom, away we went, and then we were done, right? And then we were there for basically the rest of the week because doing and hanging around and talking to other swimmers and stuff. So
was there quite a community when you were there of people like?
Yeah, so we stayed in Dover,
and
you don't leave from Dover. So Dover's got a big wave break thing. So it's a big, so it's a big marina that's breakwater is the word I was trying to think of. But we would have been west of there. There's a beach that they start at, and we started at the same time as another boat. So, but it was funny because we, cruising through got on the boat at 3:00, and the weather was pitch black.
I don't know why I thought in my head it'll be like the morning. Obviously, I'm not.
The currents are again. That's part of the reason that you have to hire somebody who's qualified. Is the currents push you all over the place because you typically swim.
Really?
Yeah, you leave Dover and then the currents. You're close to shore and the currents will push you to the east quite a bit, and then in the middle you come way back to the west, and then you go back to the east. So your swim, although you're swimming for shore, and you're just you just follow the boat, and it's the busiest boat traffic in the world, right? And so there's people sailing, there's big freighters back and forth, the ferries leaving Dover go back to Calais and back, right? So there's all these boats and people and so he's current. So he's trying to navigate all this stuff. So you're just.
And see, when you're swimming, are you quite conscious of all the boats and stuff? Or are you like?
You can see them. Your head's in the water for the most part. But for sure, if you take a sight anywhere and you can see, there's a bunch of boats. Like, I sure hope he's doing his job because all I'm doing is just sticking by the boat. And that was I guess the really fun part of being able to do it as a team was you had, two or three of our teammates were all kind of watching you, right?
Yeah.
So you can always kind of take a look and they're going, good job or whatever. And we had a little system of timing. So we had swam for an hour, so 15 minutes in, 30 minutes in, 15 minutes to go sort of deal.
Yeah.
And then we'd, do the wave and do a switch up or whatever, so the other person would get in and swim past and stuff. So.
But I think I should have convinced people to do a relay with me as opposed to.
Well, the lady who organized ours, um, last year or the summer before, she and another friend tried to go as a duo,
Yeah.
and they didn't make it because they just got too cold.
Oh, really?
So yeah, and
Really?
we found that too. Even though I can't imagine how people do it. Like one lady's done a quad crossing, like
Back,
there and back
yeah.
and there and back,
Yeah, that's crazy.
and it's amazing.
So did you, like, with regards to the temperature, did you were there points where you're like, this is actually quite cold?
It was pretty cold.
Do you think that's because, like, I wonder if, or your opinion, like, do you think that's because you were coming in and out? Like, if you, like, do you think if you'd stayed I'm obviously looking at it from the benefit of me, but, like, if you'd stayed in the water and your body, you're, like, would you kind of stay acclimatized?
I think it really depends on your metabolism and stuff. And I think you do, like when you first jump in, like it was 13, 14 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that you have to have proven. I don't know if you've got through that or not, or they may have changed it, but you had to show that you were able to swim in water 15 degrees Celsius for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you had to kind of
yeah.
certify that. So we had to do kind of test swims, if you will.
Yeah.
And I just swam here in Quarry, and I just got in and just swam around.
Yeah.
And,
What's the temperature there?
well, this morning it was like 20 or 21.
Oh, is that what you were swimming this morning?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. I never thought that.
Yeah, we live like a 10-minute walk away.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's a good place to go.
Oh, that's so true. I never thought that.
Yeah, so it would be a good spot to train.
Oh, that's because even though I've been here this long, and I've been in Canmore tons of times, like, I was like, oh, I can't do outdoor swimming here because it's all lakes. I never even thought of Quarry, like.
Yeah. But then the other one, like you can swim in Ghost Reservoir.
Okay, yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
that's pretty nippy too. So
yeah.
So and I think the more you can swim in cold water, you kind of get used to it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like a lot of people do cold plunges and all that sort of stuff. You know, there's a whole bunch of, I guess, data that shows that that's beneficial.
Yeah.
But certainly, our friends this lady that just swam as the duo, they live in Penticton or Naramata, and they swim in Okanagan Lake.
Yeah.
And they just get in and they just keep swimming later and later into the year.
Right,
so they're still swimming without wetsuits into October and stuff. So they've just really spent a lot of time in colder water.
Yeah.
So it seems to have helped.
Yeah, I remember when I was, like a number of years ago, I was doing an open water swim training for something, and it was seriously like an hour and a half. I think it was an hour 20 or something. And it was actually an old canal. It was a disused canal, so like the end of it, you could literally just do like laps.
Oh, neat.
Definitely not, and it was in like a city as well. It was not in any way like a scenic or nice place to swim, but it was really, really, really just like efficient way to do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember, so I lived about 45 minutes away from this place. Swam for like an hour and 20, and I remember I was freezing. But anyway, just kept swimming. Go back in my car, and like, got in my car, I had heated seats, blasting the heating, like as hot as you could do for the entire 45-minute drive. You know, like obviously, usually after like 5 minutes, you're like, right, cool, I'm dry and warm, it's okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, entire 45 minutes, blasting every possible heating appliance I had. I got out of the car, as soon as I got out of the car, my temperature just like plummeted straight back down.
Yeah.
And it was like, obviously I was fine, but it was like, it was one of two times maybe that happened where like, it took me a good, like, honestly, it probably took me a good couple of hours to like, just like warm up, like my internal temperature to warm up.
Yeah.
And it's funny how like, this is something I've loved about getting into these kind of things. Is like, see, when you have that, like your worries of, like, I don't know, like something you said to a friend or something that happened at work, you just can't, like, they're just out the window. So like, you have this physical, like, I remember actually similar idea. So when I was training, we had a quarry in Scotland. I actually don't know how cold it was, but a quarry in Scotland's gonna be pretty cold. And I was training for the Ironman at this point in time. I hated it, but obviously I was training, so I was like, I need to do it. Like, there's no way I wasn't going to do it, so I was doing it day, week after week. Anyway, do the race, but the whole time my dad had been coming with me. My dad's at this point in time had been like 60, 5 maybe.
Yeah.
You know, he's doing over like a small to medium sized business, but it was COVID at the time. You know, I think at that point he had like 80 or so members of staff. You know, I had to cut them by a third because of COVID.
Wow.
You know, so he's, you know, a man like running a business, all this is going on, but he's like training with me. And the reason I bring that up though is because as soon as the race was done, my motivation to swim in that quarry just like evaporated. I was like, I don't need to suffer to do this anymore. But I found that out because me and my dad, because we'd gone into a routine, you know, it was like our kind of Saturday thing or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I'd left at home at this time. He was like, do you want to go swimming? I was like, yeah, we go. I get in it. I do like one like length out and back, and I'm like, nah, I'm done. Like this is, I'm so not wanting to do this. And he kept going. And it wasn't until that moment that my motivating factor had been removed, and I was like watching him swim. And I was like, for a reason. Like, why is he doing it? He didn't have a reason to do it other than you know he's a fit guy. And I remember like he never said this to me, but I remember thinking, I was like, it's probably like the stress or like everything that's going on outside of life. Like when you're that cold, like he's not thinking about like his family, not in a bad way, but he's not thinking about his family, he's not thinking about like all, you know, the stresses of trying to operate a business in COVID, about the people he's laid off, about all he's thinking about is how cold he is. And weirdly it's like that, like it's almost, and I had that on a much like smaller scale. That it's probably like a weirdly like a sense of relief to just be so focused on this thing as opposed to like you know.
Yeah, but the cold part I think is something that certainly affected me.
Yeah.
Because after this well, and like so there's 6 people, so you swim for an hour and then you basically have 5 hours to do what you know, to kind of get warmed up or whatever. And a couple of people had no problems with the temperature of the water, and a few did. And likewise, some had seasickness problems and others didn't. But for me, after I got out the second time, I was like sitting there just and uncontrollably shivering. I didn't feel cold.
Yeah, but you're just
but your body, your core temperature has dropped enough that it's, you know, in that mode where it feels it needs to do something. So and so I'm sitting there, I'm relatively comfortable, but my body is just kind of got this low level shivering going on. And then, you know, we had lots of clothing to put on and stuff like that, and some hot fluid to kind of get into your core. So. And
did you purposely put weight on before the swim?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it never comes off as easy as it goes on. So. So I was probably about as heavy as I am now.
Okay.
So a little bit of extra fat around the belly and stuff. So did that help? I don't know. But,
I know. Because I think so. There's a guy. There's that. I assume you might have heard of him. Ross Edgley, he's a UK swimmer. He's like the guy that swam around the UK. He's tried to do like I think he's recently. I think a couple of times he's tried to like do the world's like longest swimming for various reasons. He's not done it, but like he's like a bodybuilder. Like he's this huge like you know. If you saw the guy, you'd be like, oh, he must be like a powerlifter or whatever. But you know, he's. I think it's interesting how like weight necessarily doesn't play too much a factor. I mean, he's somewhat of an example of it, where this guy's like massive, you know, and I think he puts on a lot of weight. And the reason I was asking that question though was because, you know, I've obviously been researching it, and a lot of it's like, hey, you actually do want to put on weight to like, you know, it's like for everything else I've done, it's always been like you want to be as lean and as trim as you can be. Yeah. Whereas with this, you know, I don't want to necessarily be fat, but
well, there's buoyancy too, right? Yeah. So, you know, fat stores are more buoyant than solid muscle, right? Yeah. But then there's also that insulation factor. Yeah. And that was my logic too, was just to allowed myself to get a little bit heavier than I normally am. Yeah. And
I'm right on the fence of like no longer finding it as easy to like drop and put weight on. Yeah. I mean, I could easily put weight on, but I'm now at that more conscious factor, like, right, cool. Yeah. You know, like a weekend of indulgence is, I mean, I'm not too bad to be honest, but yeah, I can notice like a weekend of indulgence is like weeks down the line, I'm still like, right, cool. Yeah. I'm just going to claw back this like image that I had, but. Yeah. So see, like, how did you, so like, the race, so you start at 3 a.m. in the morning, so did you.
The first swimmer did, yeah.
Oh, sorry, the first swimmer. So how, see the end of it, like, how long was your time and your distance? Because people ask me that so often, they're like, oh, how long is it? And I'm like, well, it's...
Yeah, as the crow flies,
Yeah.
it's 30,
Yeah, 2 or 3K.
32K. And I think we swam 47.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And again, that's that big S shape, right? And the other thing is the the distance you travel in the hour that you swim varied greatly, because depending if you're fighting a current or not,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes the currents, you're swimming and the current's perpendicular to you,
Yeah.
or you're slightly into it, or slightly with it. So my two swims were, I think one was like 3K and one was like 4K or something,
really?
just because of where I was.
How did
So,
you train for the currents? Or can you not really?
well, you
just need
can't
to-
really,
you
yeah,
just need
and you
to-
don't really feel them
Oh,
because
okay, right,
they,
yeah.
it's just
You're getting
they're-
moved in the water.
yeah. So you're moving through the water, but the water's kind of moving, right?
Yeah.
So you're swimming basically the same speed,
Yeah.
but you're either being negatively or positively or neutrally affected by the current. So, and it's so like the same gang virtually did the Catalina, and we were like dead straight.
Oh,
So,
really?
but
Yeah.
it took us about the same amount of time to go about the same distance.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of shows the currents aided us, like in the channel, the English channel, they aided us and were against us probably an equal amount of time, because the two swims were virtually the same.
Yeah. So how did you? What was your? So I'm September next year is when I'm doing it.
Yep.
So I actually don't have like a cut. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just doing like a basic like 10-week 10K training plan. That's kind of what I'm following, just like kind of get my foundation back up. Just because I was swimming like very intermittently, so I was like, right, cool. Obviously, like I'm more than a year out, so I was like, get like a kind of good foundation again.
Yeah.
But I don't actually have like, and this is probably. I mean, this is probably even something I could talk about after this, because I've never actually done coaching for any of these things.
Yeah.
Like, what was your training plan? Did you make it your own, or did you find one?
I did my own, and just swam a lot. Yeah, and just to make sure, and again, it was only an hour, right? So, and then I'd have a rest. So, but I was swimming up to, and like the year before, there's Skaha Lake in the Okanagan has a, one end to the other swim, it's 11.8K. So I swam that for kind of in the same time frame. Yeah. And so that was kind of in my sights as well. But I was swimming, 5,000 or 6,000 meters at a time, just to build up that kind of the stamina.
Yeah.
And then I still did some speed work, and was in the gym, those sorts of things. And then swam 3-4 times a week.
Yeah. I'm doing like, it kind of varies. I think it actually kind of varies. Like literally, like 1 week is like two swims. It's not obviously that much, and then the next week will be 3. So like last night I did it was like a speed and pacing session. So it was like 10 50 meters 5 times, and then like each of them had like actually, it was really simple. It was like steady pace for the first one, a second quicker for the second quicker for the third, fourth one keep the pace, fifth one go a second faster again. And I actually quite like that, but that's not. I like that because I probably like it because it's like short. Do you know what I mean? And it varies. Like I think I've got one. I'm gonna go tomorrow. I actually don't know what it is, but like last Sunday it was literally like swim 2,400 meters, just like all that. So it kind of varies, and it's funny how maybe this is an obvious thing to say, but like see the ones where you're kind of like stopping and starting, like I quite like them.
Oh yeah.
Not because they're stopping and starting, but I think because like if I do that for like an hour and a half, like it seems to go really quickly. Whereas see when it's just like swim indefinitely for 2,400 meters, obviously longer than that as well. Yeah. I think that's when your brain can.
And there's positives to doing both of those too, right? Like my coach, for my triathlon stuff, we do a lot of the short, like 10 by 50. I think later this week I've got a 30 by 50.
Right, okay.
And you break that into
Yeah,
tens.
yeah,
You're just
yeah.
doing different things, right?
Yeah.
So you swim the first one, use paddles for the second one, and swim the third
Yeah.
set of 10. But yeah, and you don't take a break, between the 10th and the 11th. It's just
Yeah.
really quick change,
Oh, really,
whatever,
yeah.
right? So,
It's,
and you keep that the rest interval between the 50s is very short.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe 5, maybe 10 seconds. And that basically, you don't have really much time to recover. So,
Yeah.
and you're swimming them a little bit harder than what you would if you were just cruising through.
Yeah.
But on the other end of that is the longer, steady swims. And
Yeah.
that's when the open water stuff is really
yeah,
good.
it'd be better, yeah.
You're swimming for 45 minutes or an hour straight, and you just keep going. So
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking at the end of this. I'm obviously, I will do the 10K part of it, but I'm like, 10K in a pool. Again, before I was having this conversation, I didn't think of quarry, which I will definitely go to. But I said, man, 10K in a pool, because it's the Sally Borden in Banff, which is great. It's actually usually pretty quiet, surprisingly, because like, anytime I used the pool in the UK, it was like you and like, you'd be lucky if it was like you and one other person in a lane.
Yeah.
It was always like multiple.
yeah,
Sally Borden's amazing because there isn't a ton of people that like swim there. The issue is that it's either like one lane or two, but regardless, the other side of it is just like open play area for like kids and families and stuff. And like I'm like countless times, you'll be swimming and like a ball will just like ricochet off your head or like or anything. It's quite fun. I mean, see when it happens, it's obviously like very annoying, but like afterwards, I'm like, it's your kids, like, what do you expect? I was equally as annoying, but it's quite funny how, it can be kind of, like, even though it's a great place to swim, like, sometimes I'm like, God, this is. And can I ask you, so with this program, so I've been doing like, so like, I'll take the cool down for example. So the cool down's really simple. So it's 50 meters with paddles and fins, 50 meters with just fins, and then 50 meters with a snorkel, and then just 50 meters whatever you want to do.
yeah.
See the fins and the paddles, I'm using them because it's telling me to use them, but I have no idea why. Like, what is the benefit of paddles and fins? Or like individually?
Yeah, so paddles would allow you, that's like resistance training, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. But it also helps you, because there's a better grip on the water, it kind of helps you with kind of controlling your stroke a bit.
Right,
So
okay, yeah.
if you're not pulling straight, and like if you have a paddle on and you're off a little bit, then your hand will slide out, right? So excuse me. So you need to be a little bit more controlled that way. Fins basically allows you two or three things about fins. So fins will move you through the water faster, so it makes you need to pull faster or harder. Like if you want to work a fast turnover, but with the same amount of pull in terms of strength, if you put fins on, you move your hands faster, but you have to move your hands faster because you're moving faster through the water to feel the same amount of catch, right? So there's that. And then fins also just to help you keep your feet up.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to, because they have like neoprene long pants too, like out of a wetsuit material, and like they're basically buoyancy pants, right? So a lot of people are using those, or fins, or those and pull buoyant fins to try and keep your legs up. So that helps you with technique and that sort of thing. So
yeah, because I noticed like I'm a good swimmer, like not like not amazing, but I do notice like especially I was noticing that last night with when I was actively asking you to like up your pace. So like I think that probably maybe is a common complaint of people who like aren't like haven't swam their whole life is like I'm probably like more upper body dominant. Now when I'm just going to steady pace, that's probably not the case. Like I'm consciously feel like I'm quite even, or making a point of being quite even. But I do know I was noticing last night that like when I was consciously trying to go faster, like my legs almost like suffer. You know what I mean? Like when I'm doing a steady pace, like everything's kind of in sync.
yeah.
And then it feels like when I'm pushing, like it's more like my upper body's, even though I'm thinking about it and I'm trying to kick, I feel like I lose my rhythm. I mean, it makes sense that it happens in any sport probably, that the harder you try and go, the more your technique
falls apart,
Yeah, but I have noticed that, like, Yeah, I was noticing last night, like, I still like swimming fine, and it's funny, so like, the pool in the Sally Borden, like the gym, like the weights has like the weights is above it, so you can look out onto
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
You know, and people are like sometimes, numerous times, probably once a week minimum, I'm swimming and I'm like panting and I feel like I'm struggling and I'm like having I'm like shit really. And I'll meet someone in the change room who was upstairs in the gym. They're like, "Oh wow, you looked amazing in the pool."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Did I?" I was like, I don't know if they were saying that maybe because they don't, maybe they're not as versed at swimming as you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did I? Because I literally felt like I was partially drowning.
Yeah.
But they were like, oh yeah, you looked really good. And I was like, oh, I guess it wasn't that bad, was it? But,
Yeah, or they knew nothing about swimming.
yeah, no, I know. To be honest, there's a couple, but
No.
there's definitely a couple that are like
Yeah.
that. I'm like, I feel like I could paddle in the pool and they would be.
No.
And it's the same as any sport. Like,
Yeah.
same as doing weights. Like you see people, now I watch when I'm upstairs, I watch people in the pool and like, even like simple things like, like having your. You see a lot with people who like obviously don't swim a lot. They'll be like swimming, but their head's kind of like all over the place. You obviously want your head to be like looking down.
Yeah.
And it's like, it is funny like how when you get into it, you start to really like see the kind of flaws. And I don't mean that in a judge. I mean it is judgmental, but I don't mean it in a kind of judgmental way of people.
Yeah.
But you see the flaws.
Yeah.
You're like, oh shit, like make sure. And you kind of, even though I know to do that, I'm like, oh it's like an example. It's like a real example of like, right, cool. That's why I'm not doing that because.
Yeah, but it's good to watch other people too.
Yeah, yeah.
And because then you I wonder if and videotape, like with our clients, we videotape quite a bit. Both above and below water, because you don't have that feedback. So having somebody say that, hey, you look really good.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. But it's also, it's very common that you just feel like it's not going very well, but it's actually not that bad, right? It's just like you don't have the energy, or things are just a little bit of not quite in sync. So,
and I think
somebody who says, you look really good and you felt like shite, but it probably wasn't that bad, really. And it's amazing that it sometimes feels like, man, I feel like I'm just going to get out of the pool because this is not going very well, and it's really not that bad.
Yeah.
My coach doesn't give me many like times in terms of pace and stuff. He goes by feel, like go hard, go cruise or easy or like fast. So he uses words like that. And then, because some days, and it's in all three of the sports in triathlon, some days you've got it and some days you don't. So he's very much in, the mind, or has me in the mindset, well, if it feels hard, then, that's why he uses the word hard as opposed to a pace or whatever. And so it's, very much, you're pushing as much as you probably need to push, and so you're still getting the gains from the training aspect, but you don't have to worry too much about like in 5 seconds slower over that K or something. And so he's very much talks about it that way as opposed to like you got to nail a pace or a time or whatever. So
because that's honestly kind of what I was doing last night. Because even though I just said it was like go a second faster, I was like, I've obviously got a watch from track and everything, but so it was like 10. It was like the first one, 20 seconds in between each, then 15, then 10, then 15, then 20.
Yeah.
So like I wasn't, even though it said go 1 second faster, I was doing what you just said there. Where I was like, I feel like I'm going faster because I was like, I don't have the time to like look them up, like keep an eye on the clock to like see if 20 seconds have gone past while I'm like checking to see what the average of the times were. So it's like do like a second faster than your average. And I'm like doing mental arithmetic. I was like, cool, I'm just going to do it.
Your head couldn't do it anymore. I'm just going to swim, thanks.
And also like my watch, which is amazing, I just go on these Garmin. It had like 4% battery. So usually like when I'm swimming, I always try and keep a track of like the laps. Just like honestly, just to keep my mind like ticking over. Otherwise, I'll just daydream about whatever. But last night I was very, very conscious because I was like, if this runs out and I'm at lap, like 40 whatever, I don't want to like forget it, you know. So
Yeah.
I think yeah, I have to admit, like, even though I'm following this plan, like, when it gives me, like, very specific, like, go a second faster, I am kind of reverting to, like, I feel like I'm going faster. And the thing, though, like, jumping back to, like, me saying, like, I'm a good swimmer, but, like, there's difference between being a good swimmer, like, in a pool that can, like, you know, swim for an hour and, you know, ultimately doing what you have done and, like, I want to do, which is, like, swim open water and, like, yeah, you know, the channel.
Yeah.
You know, so like that's where like would your like is that something I could actually get maybe help with through your work, like you and your wife, like get like a like because I want to say I probably would benefit obviously
A plan.
from a plan,
Yeah. I yes,
Is
yeah,
that
we
something
could
you
do
guys
that.
still do or
Yeah, we still coach.
okay,
Yeah, and we have some just runners and some. I haven't coached anybody to that extent in terms of
or even
doing
just
such a long. I could certainly help you with different workouts and all that sort of jazz.
and
But
even just at the beginning with the technique, because I'm very much like I've never. I mean, I went to like I don't know what age, but you know, I had swimming lessons, and I was in a swimming club when I was a kid. But I'm talking like I don't even know if I did it. I would have done it in my teenage years maybe, but since then I've never had anyone. I've obviously done a lot of my own research, you know, like you know, constantly watching the YouTube videos and technique and whatnot. But I've never actually had anyone who's like, who's sat and like watched me. I was going to do it again pre-COVID, and then COVID happened and you couldn't do anything. So I just kind of I was like, cool, I'm on my own.
Yeah, I can certainly do that from from a technique standpoint. Like we go to Elevation Place and get a lane and do some video stuff and all that sort of jazz and help you hone your technique.
You'd be like, oh, these people are lying to you.
Yeah.
Your technique's terrible.
No. But I don't know that I have the experience to train you to do the channel swim.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I appreciate that.
But it's
well, definitely even just like help, like as I say, just in the pool scenario, just to make sure that my fun, you know, even like simple things like, I mean, it's really really simple, basic. But sometimes I feel like see when I breathe on my left side, I find it really easy, and it's not that I find it difficult. Easy is not the right word. When I breathe on my left side, I very rarely like get water in my mouth, but when I breathe in my right, I notice that I do. You're kind of laughing, so I assume this is like maybe a common thing you get, but like sometimes I do it. So I obviously am conscious of it. So I'm like, okay, well, you know, like rotate more or like you know, but I still do it, and I like that's something that I'm like I must be when I'm pulling this way, I must be either not pulling enough or like I'm doing something. Because why is it so much easier? Like I don't even think about it here, but when I'm over here, I'm I don't know why it's like a pet peeve.
Well, we're not symmetrical, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So like both, you know, body wise, like physically, but also our technique is usually not symmetrical. So and you see that all the time.
Yeah.
So certainly we could work through that. So and there's there's pool technique, there's open water technique too, right? No. And they're quite different depending on what the water's doing, right? So it can be, you know, like Quarry Lake was like glass this morning. Yeah. But you get a bunch of people in there and midday with some wind, then you're starting to get some pretty significant wave actions, right? So you would swim those two different conditions very differently. So,
yeah. Remember when I did the triathlon in Barcelona? I was the day before I was down, and I love swimming now, and I'm totally cool with it. But at this point, I had that panic attack on the previous one, which was like months before. You know, so I was like, my brain was like in this like total like terror of swimming, and I remember the day before the triathlon, you know, just down at the beach, and the waves probably weren't even that bad. But at this point in time, in my mind, I was like, this is like they're like crashing on the and actually the day of the race, it was like glass. It was totally fine. But yeah, I remember like I was actually. So what happened was I was originally supposed to do. I'd signed up to do the Ironman in Cork in Ireland. Oh yeah. Because I live in Scotland at that point in time. So I was like, oh, I can like literally like drive all my gear there. You know, get a ferry across. It'd be minus like obviously signing up for the event. I was like, it'd be relatively like inexpensive. COVID happened. So I did my Ironman during COVID, And what happened was they gave me two options. So obviously originally I live in Scotland, supposed to be going to Ireland. I'm like this will be like a couple of hours to get there.
Yeah.
Gave me two options. They're like South Africa
Oh.
or Estonia. So like either the southern tip of Africa or like the most eastern country in Europe. Ended up doing it in Estonia. But when I was signed up for Cork originally, like the year before that, they had cancelled the swim because the waves had been so bad, and they'd done like a duathlon or a platform or whatever it was. And I remember thinking that, I was like, man, imagine, because at that point I was desperate to do it. Now, like, like say take the swim for example. Like if I was say it got like I've obviously got a week to do it, and say like I didn't do it, like I'd obviously be bummed, but I think I'd be like, oh, okay, cool, these things happen. At this point in time, I was like obsessed. I was like, no, like if it got cancelled, I need to do it again, and blah 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 blah. But yeah, like I was kind of lucky where like I've never had like a swim that's had like the Estonian one ended up being in a lake, so it was like minus the people moving around, it was pretty like still.
Yeah.
Like I think swimming, I mean, even in like we swam in the north coast of Scotland with me and my dad, and again there was waves, but it was like little like undulating ones. Like that's where like I need to definitely get that experience, and that's where like at times I've kind of worried, maybe is too extreme a word, but like I have probably worried a little bit about like training here, because I'm like is there anywhere that I can like replicate those conditions of a current or a wave, and I guess
it would certainly be good to try and get as many difficult swims in in terms of water condition. I think that would be a good idea, because to go and I think that's, I mentioned earlier, the boat when we did to the English Channel, he was concerned that we were older, but also that we were lake swimmers. And like it's a huge difference, and I had done a bunch of ocean swimming, like in Hawaii and stuff like that, so I was relatively comfortable. But he was concerned because of that fact. So, and it turned out okay. But we had pretty significant waves. I could probably show you. I can show you some video of us of our swim.
I don't want to see it.
No. But 2 meter waves, like before, and that's kind of when he was starting to.
I think that was something I didn't realize before. Because someone's like, oh, it's only like that high. But I'm like, yeah, but you're like, that's there to you because you're in the water.
Oh yeah, and it's you're at the bottom of the trough or at the the top of the wave. They look pretty big.
Yeah.
But you go up and down with them too, so it's not. But we had a few where a bit of a white cap or whatever would break over and kind of slap you in the face and stuff. So it got pretty dicey towards the end there, and like I said, he was starting to think about pulling it out.
I mean, you guys
pulling us out.
Were you like all pretty content? Not content to obviously not. Had you all been like, if this gets cancelled, no one's going to make a fuss. Like we're just going to take his.
Yeah, well,
I mean, you can't really do anything, can you? It's just
you don't have much choice. It's his call, right? So and he's there for your safety. That's why he's there, right? So, and they take it very seriously. They're all certified pilots.
Yeah. And
certified by the China Swimming Association and stuff. So, but we fared okay, and I was. If you took a look at it, you'd say, yeah, that's pretty rough to be swimming.
Yeah.
And we were still okay. So, but
this is something. It's more of a silly question, but something I've actually thought about. It's like, did you have any like jellyfish or like?
Yeah, a few got stung.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. And
any bastard sharks?
We didn't see any.
Nah.
It was funny.
Did you see anything? Nah, it's just like pitch black, I would assume.
In at night, well, you swim with lights and stuff on, right? And they don't have a spotlight on you, but you've got a light on your cap and a light on your suit. And then they're obviously,
Is that?
For the channel, we didn't have to have a boat in the water with us, but when we did Catalina, we had a kayak. So there was so you're able to swim a little bit further away from the boat because you've got a kayak with you. But they were quite concerned that you stay pretty close to the boat when we did the channel. So.
And is it quite like, I didn't even think to ask this, but like starting, is that quite unnerving? Like 3 a.m. I would assume it's pitch black. You're just like getting. I don't know. Were you first?
No, I was. I think fourth. Yeah. So we were broad daylight by the time I swam the first one, and then we were only 13 hours, so we were in daylight for the rest of the day.
Right. Okay. Sweet.
But we, Catalina, we started at 11 o'clock at night, so we all swam in the dark. Yeah. But the really neat part about that was there was luminescence in the water. You know that whatever that bacteria.
Is that why you started later, or?
No, again, timing of currents and stuff, right? So that's kind of when and we want. You could swim from shore out to Catalina or from Catalina in. So, but the funny you talked about marine life. Yeah. So the first swimmer, she started both parts. So this was a lady whose dream it was to swim the English Channel, and she got the gang together. We were all acquaintances, not all close friends, but I knew a few people quite well. And so she started at Catalina, and we weren't more than about 15 minutes in, and a dolphin came, and she said, I could see the shadows swimming by me, and there are sharks there, great white sharks. Right? Actually, 2 weeks after we swam, a couple of guys were out kayaking around Catalina, and a great white shark bit the back of his kayak and embedded a couple of teeth in it. So we were happy that we were done this thing. If that had been before us, we were even a little bit more leery. Yeah. But and it's documented that dolphins will accompany you and stuff. So, but she said, swimming along, and it is pitch black except for this little bit of luminescence. And she said, I saw a shadow go past me, and then a couple of times, and she said, if it was just me swimming, I would have got out. Yeah. But there's 5 other people that have spent the year kind of getting. She said, if it hadn't been for that, I would have been out of the waters. And I could hear the dolphins blowing. Yeah. And so there's 2 observers on the boat with us, and I said, "Did you hear that?" And he hadn't. I said, "There's something in there, and I'm sure I'm hearing it blow, so it's a dolphin." Yeah. And he said, "Is it only one?" I said, "I've only seen one," because you can kind of hear it, see it, kind of at the same time. And he said, they usually come in pairs. And if you only hear one, I said, yeah, but I can hear it blow. I said, okay, well, I'm pretty comfortable that it's a dolphin, right? And so when she got out, everybody goes, oh, how'd it go? It was great, no problem. Next person's in and swimming away. And then later on, she said, I saw that shadow, and I was terrified. So,
I'm definitely, that is like I mean, the UK is obviously different because the water's colder, so there's not like free rights and stuff like that. But that is like maybe I would hope it's a natural fear of just like of that kind of like I guess sharks. But yeah, I've never really swum anywhere that was an issue. So this is the first one. But I think I'm pretty sure they have basking sharks.
There are, for sure. We heard about them. Yeah. And the jellyfish is the big thing. Yeah. Like a couple of people got pretty badly stung, and you kind of have to deal with it. But we have one picture of one of the swimmers, and there's like a big jellyfish right in front of her, and so she's doing this kind of this spastic mid-stroke stop like this. It's an interesting picture, but you can just kind of see the jellyfish in front of her. But there's also like the juvenile jellyfish, you can't really see them, and you can feel the little bit of stinging if you swim through a little cloud of them or whatever.
And how were they after they got stung? Were they okay, or were they
kind of like? Yeah, they were okay. It's painful, and you kind of brush it off, and then there was some salve that you could put on. Right. But it is what it is, and you just can't. There's nothing you can do about it. You can see them, like if we were on the boat, you can kind of see them in the water, but depending on the time of the day, this is what we found anyways, they seem to be a little bit lower in the water column. Yeah. And then maybe temperature gradient or something, they prefer it, or I don't know. But So we definitely had times when they were more prevalent, and then a bunch of times, like my swim, I saw a few, but there were hardly any at all.
Yeah.
And you could just, and they weren't up in front of me. I could kind of see them down a little bit.
But
So.
yeah, I think I'm the same as that woman though. I think even just the shadow, even though I'm like, if I don't know why. I think I just have. I just don't. I obviously just have a fear of sharks, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think even if I saw a shadow, I'd be like, because I lived in Australia for a year. Obviously, like sharks are like all over the place there.
Yeah.
You know, and it was funny, like, so I used to do, and they obviously have crocodiles and stuff as well, so, like, I lived in a place where, like, there was, like, tons of, kind of similar to here, there was tons of, like, lakes and stuff like that, but they're very, like, murky and, not everywhere, but a lot of them were, like, quite, there was, like, I don't know if they would be peaty, but effectively that kind of, like, really dark water, like, you know, you're looking in it, and it's just, like, you can't even see your hand if it's there.
Yeah.
You know, like, me growing up in the UK and having, like, stories of Australia, my friend that I would go to these places with was Australian, and I'd be like, "Are there any sharks in here?" No, sorry, I'd be like, "Are there any crocodiles in here?"
Sharks.
And he would find it hilarious that was like a genuine concern that I had.
Yeah.
And I think it's just obviously from the UK. I was like, "Yeah, but it's this entire place," and he would, you know, and he said, "Yeah, there might be," but he said, "You'll be fine," and I was just like, "I don't know if I can."
Yeah.
I can do
Fine,
that.
right until the croc bites you.
Yeah, no, I know. And it's the same in Australia. Like, there's more, you know, I mean, pretty much the whole coast, but there's obviously like, you know, there's a place called, have you been to Australia?
Yep.
Did you go to Whit Sundays?
Yes.
Yeah, so like Whit Sundays obviously kind of like different vibe, but similar to here, is very popular, very touristy.
Yeah.
And I remember like I was there, and then similar to your story with the kayak, like a few weeks after I was away, I mean, and I literally paddled in the water. At this point in time, I was not swimming or doing anything triathlon related. And I remember, like, a couple of weeks later, like, someone got, like, attacked at a shark there, and just, like, yeah, I guess, like, that's the blessing of, you know, every place has its pros and cons, but, like, one of the things with the UK is, like, you know, you don't have any predators, like, on land or off land, really.
Yeah.
You know, you can go a hike for days without seeing anyone, really, if you want to, like, never mind a bear or a cougar or whatever. You know, the water's the same. You know, like, the worst thing is probably a jellyfish or a boat, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas moving to Canada, so when I first moved here, I was doing the 100 miles. So I was like, you know, obviously doing a lot of trail running, and it was, I was very conscious of like, obviously running, like, you know, so I would do like Spray River Loop or just like in that kind of general area or even out here. And I remember the first time I was running, so I was going from Banff down to like essentially like the crossover at High Line.
Yeah.
I don't know how far that is, but it was the first time I did it. So I'd never been to the kind of like point where you like cross over, and was running away, and then like I had on my watch, so I knew it was like 5k away from like where I needed to turn around and come back.
Yeah.
And a girl probably same age as me, just like running past it, very nonchalant, was like, "Oh, just so you know," she was like, "There's a grizzly bear at the end," but I'd never been to the end.
Oh, yeah.
So I just for the next 5 kilometers was just like running in like terror. You know, because I was like, I knew I think this is like maybe my second summer, so I was like, I knew that this is just a part of life here. But I was like, my UK part of my brain was like, why are you still running, like turn around? Whereas the Canadian part was like, nah, this is just.
Yeah.
And I ended up didn't see a bear, met an older couple, but I was just going out and back, so I met them like maybe a kilometre from the end. I turned around and came back. So I passed by them again on the way back, and they were like, "Oh, did you turn around because you saw a bear?" And I was like, "Nah, I just got to my halfway point." I was like, "How have you?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, we saw like we've seen 3 this morning." And you know, like I was like, at this point, I'd actually not really seen a ton. Now that I've been here, you know, you see them like I've seen like enough to know it's just part and parcel. But yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, the UK is like. Since the breeze, like, you know, you were talking about going to Hawaii, like, I was there, me and my girlfriend went there, I think October last year, you know, and I was swimming a little bit, but yeah, in the back of my head, maybe I'm a little bit of a hybrid contract, but in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't want to get too far off coast here, because, I don't know, I think I have this internal paranoia that there's just, like, sharks everywhere.
Yeah.
But,
well, they're certainly out there, right? So, and I freely admit that I have the same thing in the back of my head, but I've never, like, we've done a fair amount of hiking, and we've rarely seen bears.
Yeah.
Like, you see them,
Yeah,
but
no,
and
yeah,
in sort of in a distance where you kind of think, this is probably not what I want to be. So, but yeah, and then the other people I know see lots of people like that couple. Right? Yeah, we saw 3 this morning already.
Yeah,
Okay,
so,
well,
yeah,
yeah,
no.
and you're still out here.
Yeah, no,
Well,
no.
yeah, it is part of the deal. So, I think it's your own. Everybody has their own kind of um, tolerance level, if you will,
Yeah.
right? Where it's, yeah, may or may not happen, and I'm not going to worry about it. Well, it depends. So, yeah, because I know some people that they spend a lot of time out in the backcountry and they see bears all the time and they've never had any incidents.
Yeah.
And then there's other people who haven't made it through a bear encounter, right?
Yeah.
So it's certainly there, but I think by far the majority of time they don't want to see you anymore and you want to see them.
Yeah, no,
so,
I know.
So and that's kind of what I try and keep in my head anyways,
Yeah.
is they're there and you're there, and
Yeah.
if you don't scare them or startle them, they're more than likely just carry on with what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, but,
Are you okay with that? I'm conscious that you're kind of sitting in the sun here.
oh, I'm fine.
Right,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I was going to say the one thing I've noticed when I swam in Scotland compared to Barcelona was like the enjoyment factor of swimming in warm water.
Oh yeah.
Like, did you have that one between the Channel and the Catalina one? It's just like night and day.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was. Oh, the water. So I think the water in the Channel was, I think it was 14 to 15 degrees. And in Catalina it was like 21.
Yeah, but yeah.
So
when I did Barcelona, I was like mid-20s. It was
Yeah.
like I had a wetsuit, but I was like overheating probably.
Yeah. Well, and it's just, the buoyancy factor from the salt content is about the same, but it's so much more comfortable in terms of, and it wasn't as choppy. We had perfect weather.
Yeah.
And very very little current, hardly any wind, and we're just kind of cruising along in Catalina, right? So, and again, a fair number of boats, like ships and stuff, but nowhere near the Channel. And you're kind of, again, conscious of that, but not so much if you're in the water. It's more when you're on the boat, you can see, oh, there's a lot of boats out here. So, but yeah, the water temperature made a huge difference. It was just that much more, and it's much more comfortable to be on the boat because it's not, you don't have as much wave action. So I had no problems with seasickness when we did the Catalina.
Yeah.
And then getting out of the water that temperature, you dry off, and it's a sunny California day, and it was you're warm. You're not all huddled up, shivering, and trying to keep something down. And so,
how was the boat back? How long is the boat journey back? Is it quite?
Yeah, it was a couple of hours.
Yeah, because it's not like you finish and then you're like, cool, we're done. It's like, cool, now we need to.
Yeah.
So I've got
in the Catalina, we went out and had we cruised. We left at, it was probably like supper time because we ate on the way out, and the swim started at 11. On the English Channel, it would start at 3. Well, met him at 3. I think we started swimming at 4, and it was really rough on the way back because we were all, and we're all still kind of shivering, and that dissipates quite quickly because you're so excited that you actually got it done.
Yeah.
And then we went back and met the rest of our party at a pub, and then had a bite to eat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but that was like at 9 o'clock at night. So we'd been on the go for
the whole day.
Yeah, pretty well the whole day.
Yeah.
So
I'm booked for the first week in September.
Yeah.
I'm the 4th, I believe I'm the 4th wave. So yeah, I guess I would be the 4th. So how does that work? Because I assume the captain, obviously, the boat needs time of rest as well. So like, I guess there's a couple of factors, like the main one being the weather window.
Yeah.
But then I guess it's like he takes someone out, comes back, and then he needs to rest, and then does he effectively just go again, and then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I guess it depends on how much, if he's fully booked for that time window or not.
That's right. Yeah.
But I would suspect it's their business, right? So they would be wanting to be out and back and have, rest up and be gone again as soon as they can. So
I found it really hard to get. I was actually this is like maybe not a couple of years ago. but I found it really hard to get a slot
Oh
at
yeah.
all. Because
Yeah.
like I was like, uh, I think it was 2022. I did the hundreds, so I was like kind of not immediately, but like quite quickly after that, I was like, right, cool, like think of the next thing, and then obviously
Yeah.
the channel came up, and I remember so like maybe say like I did that in September, so say maybe like end of 2022, beginning of 2023, I was like, oh, like channel swim, cool. Let's try and do it for like 2024, and it was like literally everyone. I emailed like 9 different operators, and they were like, nah. And
Yeah.
then so I was like, what about 2025? And as I say, out of pretty much them, I think I said earlier, I emailed a couple. I think I emailed them all in the end. And out of them, like a couple of them got back to me for like 2025.
Yeah.
And this, obviously you probably know this, but
Mm.
like at that time I was like crazy. So yeah, that was kind of this. Uh, it's honestly really like the only time I could get.
Yeah.
Which now in hindsight, like obviously it's been quite beneficial. It would have been cool to have done it this year, but it's the same as anything. Like it just gives me more time to like practice, more time to kind of really dial it in. But yeah, like I'm definitely looking forward to it. But it seems out of like everything I've done so far, even like man, it's like so mine was 14 hours.
Yeah.
Even that, but it's like it's fairly like what's the word I'm looking for? It's fairly like set, and I mean that in the sense of like you know exactly how far you're going to run, exactly how far you're going to cycle, and maybe just because of like bumping here and there, you might swim slightly more than the official distance. But as like, and also like exactly what day it is. Granted, like as I was saying with the Irish one, like the weather might cancel it, whatever. But this is like the first thing that I've really done, whereas it is you need to just be like comfortable with the variable nature of it, i.e. like they might not be. I can't say like it's going to be on the 4th of September.
Right.
Maybe after that.
Yeah.
I can't. When people ask me all the time, they're like, "Oh, how far is it?" I'm like, "Well, it's 30 whatever k, but it could be longer and maybe that's
Yeah.
I'm excited though, but yeah, I think I definitely need to. After this, like I definitely would chat to you about even just like very basic swimming technique.
Yeah.
As you know as well, like I think that because with the hundreds, I was by the time the race came, I was doing any placebo I could possibly do to like give me that mental like motivation, just because like that was like obviously it's quite far, so even maybe like a month before the race, I started like just like getting a better bag, getting better socks, getting the calf thing. I was like buying stuff that like if you'd asked me, and even asked me now, like I bought those calf socks. I have no idea if they benefited me whatsoever, but at the time I was like I'm getting them because like all these small things just was like I was just like I want to make sure that I've literally like left nothing on like to chance. Because what happens if I do buy the socks and even in my head, because I think it actually does, like the placebo of thinking I have done all these things, I have the best bag I could get, I have this, I have that, like it gives you like, even if it's false, it does give you that confidence to be like, right, cool. Obviously plus the training, you're like, cool, I'm in the best possible situation I can be in. And that's why like, especially with the with this swim, like I would love to like really like dial it. Like even if you're like your swim is okay, but tweak this little thing, it kind of gives you that confidence that like cool, I've had someone who knows, not one of the gym bros from the gym being like, yeah, you look sick, like someone in your position who's like actually knows what they're talking about, being like,
Sure.
yeah,
Just back to I think it took Elaine, who organized our swim. We swam in July, and I think she booked it 3 years ahead.
I know.
Because that's like the July, August is probably the most requested time frames, right? And actually, but early September is probably pretty good because you've had the whole season for the water to warm up a little bit, right?
Yeah, you notice that that's exactly what I've been telling myself. Like, you kind of make it's a confirmation bias. As soon as you make a decision, you then find all the things that line up with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did think that. I was like, July and August would be better, but I guess the sea's been warmer for those 2 months. Like getting into September, you're probably that's when it's in theory starting to turn colder.
Yeah.
So it's like, and actually because like most of the things I've done just purely a coincidence have always been around about September, October training wise.
Yeah.
Like the 100. Well, yeah. Honestly, like Ironman was September. 100, I think was honestly. I think it was September. I think the triathlon was October, and I think I've just kind of got used to that. Like, obviously, I always like at minimum do like a year before it.
Yeah.
But like you get to the start of the year and you're kind of like, right, cool, I've got this goal. That's not like in consuming my entire year, but like consumes, keeps you on a good a good track for most of the year, and then after that, September to Christmas isn't a long time, and I'm kind of like definitely in
Yeah.
Have you got anything coming up just now, or are you just?
We're racing in. We have a triathlon in Las Vegas in October.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and then we're doing a bike and hike trip in the Dolomites in September.
Wow.
Yeah, with 2 other couples. So that's a couple of weeks.
And is that something that you set up yourself, or is that like a company that you?
One of our friends is a travel agent, and she loves to organize things like that. So we just go along with her most of her ideas. We just go, that's a great idea. And we've been to Europe. She's actually originally from Switzerland. Okay. She and her husband, and we've done a bunch of hiking and biking trips with them and stuff. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, I think that's definitely when I was younger. I still have this friend now, but when we were younger, we had one friend when we were going on like lads' holidays, which are not very cultured. We had one friend who was just always like he would like effectively like tell you where to go, what to do, blah 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 blah. When you're young guys, you're like, oh, like give it a break, like let's just chill. Whereas now, I'm like, man, I wish I could go on holiday with like him again, just because he's so. Yeah. You would know, like even the holidays he goes on with his partner now, like they're dialed in, like exactly where you're gonna be, exactly what you're gonna do. So I think having a friend who kind of like, I have to admit that's probably like one of my flaws is that I'm at times not too. Like we went to Hawaii, and to be fair, like we planned everything because it was a short period of time. It's a kind of bucket list destination, so we're like, let's make sure we don't miss anything out. Usually, if I go on holiday, I'm like, cool, let's go to San Fran and just like see what happens when we get there. Whereas like having someone, whether it's your partner or like a friend, who's just like, nah, this is what we're doing. I'm like, cool, I'm fully on board. Now that I'm just like,
I'm happy to come.
Cool, Chris. I'm gonna. That'd be good.
Good.
Yeah. I really appreciate you doing this with me.
No problem at all. Interesting chat. We covered a lot of different things.
No,